To the people of Baltimore and the demonstrators across America, I heard your call for no justice, no peace. Your peace is sincerely needed as I work to deliver justice on behalf of this young man. To those that are angry, hurt, or have their own experiences of injustice at the hands of police officers, I urge you to channel the energy peacefully as we prosecute this case. I have heard your calls for no justice, no peace. However, your peace is sincerely needed as I work to deliver justice on behalf of Freddie Gray.
She also went on to talk to the young people, saying this is your time, this is our time. My goodness. Joining us now to talk about the 6 officers who have been charged and are in prison behind bars right now. Larry Elder, radio host of the Larry Elder Show, and of course author of Dear Father, Dear Son, 2 Lives, 8 Hours, and David Goodfriend, Democratic strategist, former deputy staff secretary to President Clinton. David, let me start with you. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. She spoke as in my view, and in the view of Alan Dershowitz and the view of Sheriff David Clark, who we've had on prior to you guys, she spoke as an activist. She was inappropriate. I never saw anything like it.
Well, I've seen something like it. I've seen Sheriff Arpaio in Arizona. I mean, you got prosecutors and law enforcement officials who do come from strong viewpoints, and that's why we have courts. It's a wonderful thing about this country. The court is the place where a judge gets to sit dispassionately, hear evidence, hear witnesses, and I'm no lawyer compared to Alan Dershowitz, but I certainly will reserve judgment until there are facts presented in court. I do think, though, we should ask ourselves if there's something bigger than just Baltimore or just Ferguson or just Arizona or wherever you want to focus on. I think Rand Paul and Hillary Clinton are speaking the same language on criminal justice reform, and that is pretty interesting to me. That's pretty important to me. This could be a teachable moment for the whole country where we actually ask whether civil liberties are more at risk than they should be, whether having 2 million people in prison is too many.
Yeah, well, I say it's not enough, because if 2 million people committed crimes, there should be 2 million people in prison. And I'm sure there are lots of people got away with lots of crimes that are walking the streets. And Larry, this is the scary part. This is the show. With all due respect, David said Ferguson. Nothing happened in Ferguson other than a thug taking the gun of a cop and shooting it, and then running away and then turning around and charging at that cop with intent to do harm. So they still bring up Ferguson. They still bring up New York, where a jury heard all the evidence, saw all the videos, and said nothing happened. And they say, oh, look at Ferguson, look at New York, look at here. We have to have fundamental change. No, we don't, Larry.
Same thing. You left out Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. It turned out that George Zimmerman was found not guilty, and every single one of those jurors said race never came up, despite the hysteria outside the courtroom. The question really here is, are we going to allow justice to be done based upon the facts or the law, or because of community pressure and passion, will the prosecutor be led to do something that is irresponsible? I've never seen an investigation done this quickly in just 2 weeks. Remember how long Ferguson took? How long Trayvon Martin took? People were complaining about that. My goodness, 6 officers charged already in just 2 weeks, and the investigation, as far as I knew, was still going on. Have the tox reports come back? Has the autopsy come back? I don't know.
That's a good question. And David, they got the information from the police department yesterday, 500-page report full of evidence and testimony and witnesses. How on earth could she make a decision overnight based on that evidence?
Well, again, I'm not trying the case. She's trying the case. She had to make a judgment whether or not to bring a case, and a judge, the jury, it'll be a long time, guys, before you ever see a trial on this. You have to realize there'll be procedural motions made.
All right, fair enough. Listen, guys, we're coming back. We're coming back. I'm out of time. We're coming back. Don't go away. All right, folks, we are back with the Malzberg panel, Larry Elder and David Goodfriend. And David, I just want to finish up on this Baltimore stuff. You were going to give a final thought from you, then we'll get one from Larry.
Yeah, my final thought is this. We'd be wise not to get so caught up in the particulars of each and every case that we lose sight of the fact that people take to the streets out of desperation. I think if we had less income inequality in this country, more upward mobility, better middle class jobs, you wouldn't see entire neighborhoods and entire cities going up in flames. That's a real problem.
But David, you're right. It's a real problem. And you know what? How is it possible after 6 years of the first black president and after years and decades? Wait a minute. And decades of Democratic rule in the very cities that you're talking about. How is it possible?
Because it's not about race. There are rich
I'm not saying race. I'm talking about Barack Obama. He was going to end it all. He was going to make it better. He hasn't. And these cities have been run by Democrats with Democratic policies. $22 trillion we have spent in this country on anti-poverty since the 60s. What has it wrought, David? Dependency.
When my boss was president, Bill Clinton, that income inequality was at its lowest point, and it got worse after he was out of office. I want a Clinton back in the White House.
Oh, I see. That'll solve it. Okay. Sorry, she might be otherwise occupied, but we'll see about that. Larry, go ahead.
I'm astonished by what I just now heard. So it's about poverty. Why aren't people in Appalachia marching on Washington? There are lots of places that are more poor than Baltimore. This is ridiculous. And about pressure on this prosecutor, remember the half a dozen or so black witnesses that testified or said that Michael Brown was charging Officer Darren Wilson? They were afraid to make their names known public because they feared reprisal.
Yep.
That guy that was in the van with Freddie Gray went public because he felt that people in the community thought that he said that Freddie Gray tried to kill himself.
He was a snitch.
He feared for his life.
Right. That's what he said. He's afraid for his life now. That's the problem in these communities.
This is the amount of pressure we're talking about here.
Yep. All right. Let's move on. The Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Health Access Initiative, which is a part of the Clinton Foundation, run by, Ira Magaziner. Don't we remember him? Let's do some opposition research on Ira Magaziner. Has gotten millions of our money now. Now we're not even talking about the Saudi Arabia and the other oppressive regimes contributing or big fundraisers. We're talking about taxpayer money from the CDC. I want you to weigh in on that, David. And plus, a bunch of big Hillary and Bill donors to political campaigns and to the foundation. They're now on safari in Africa. Ooh, that must be part of the expense portion of the 90% of where the Clinton Foundation money goes.
Well, I hate to put it to you this way, but the CEO of your organization, Chris Ruddy of Newsmax, wrote it best in his column when he said that he actually looks at the Clinton Global Initiative with a lot of respect for what it's done around the world, that the funding is accounted for, that it's well done, and that it's
the funding is not accounted for according to the people.
Your CEO.
That's right. I have great respect for Chris Ruddy, but you know what? People whose career it is and to monitor charities have called them a suspicious charity and said that 10% of the $2 billion has gone to help people.
The Schweitzer guy, this hack, is that who you're talking
about?
No,
I'm talking about you could impugn the
He's
people's
a hack.
All right, David, that's unfair. He's not here to defend himself, but I'm not talking about Schweitzer. I'm talking about the group that monitors they call themselves the foremost monitor of charities in the country. They're the gold standard for monitoring charities, and they said, first of all, the Clintons' books are so mangled they can't make heads or tails out of it, but what they can make out is that 10% goes to helping the people. The rest is expenses. David, don't play dumb on this.
I won't play dumb. Again, I'll cite to the Chris Ruddy article that pointed out the...
All right, Larry, you're next. I got to let Larry weigh in. We got less than a minute left in the segment. Larry?
I'm just wondering whether or not he'll feel the same way about Schweitzer when Schweitzer comes out with a book critical of Jeb Bush's real estate deals, which apparently is what he's doing right now. Is he still going to be a hack?
Right.
What's that, David? All right, we lost you, and I'm not making that up. Everybody could hear it. There's no conspiracy. I promise you.
Electromagnetic pulse, we got rid of him.
All right, guys, listen. Have a great weekend. Love talking to you both. And David, I cut you short in that segment, even though you were going to quote my boss again, because I hadn't heard from Larry in the segment yet, and I wanted to get him in there. So there you go. Okay, and I'm sure we'll continue this conversation for a long, long time to come. Thank you both. All right, folks. Mayor Richard Riordan is next, the former mayor of Los Angeles. But first, we're bringing back our viewer call-in segment here on the Steve Malzberg Show, but we need you to be proactive. That means reach out to us. so you could participate in the viewer call-in segment. And what you have to do is send us an email. Send it to callsteve@newsmax.com. That's callsteve@newsmax.com. Tell us how we could contact you during the day, and we'll try to set it up and make it happen, because we want to hear from you. Don't go away.